boy dies because he was reading. Now that's something else. Then you'd like to know, what was he reading? Hello, it's Nathan. I talk about books. Sorry. Hat was doing that weird thing where it like has tufts of your hair in such odd places. Hello! I really don't know how to go about talking about this one. I have mixed feelings. Okay, where are my thoughts? I already wrote my review of this. A scathing review. I'm in such an odd place right now where my written voice is very different from my speaking voice, and I'm just so much more cynical in my written voice right now. I don't know why. Please forgive me. I don't know why. Okay, I want to begin with a quote where I feel like the novel shifts and we get a sense of what Elif is trying to achieve with the book before we jump into the message of what does it mean to lead an aesthetic life, a book which Celine is reading, either or, and the message is how does she live an aesthetic life versus an ethical one. And it's interesting to pit an ethical life with an aesthetic life. Like, why are those two things pitted against each other in Celine's head? Very interesting take. A commentary pre-internet. Well, I mean, she was on the internet, but like before internet as like mass information. It's an interesting time to think about. Like, before you can have information right at your fingertips. How did you hunt for books? How did you hunt for music? How did you gather information? And for Celine, especially, gathering information was a ways through reading and how reading informed you, which I think is sort of the birth of like critical thinking for oneself. Immediately after finishing a book, you can look at Goodreads or other reading vlogs, video essays, forums, threads, where for Celine's time, you didn't really have that. You had other people in your class, immediate social circles in order to discuss books and what they do. Because of that, because of these immediate social circles, you were able to think more critically. For my older readers out there, how did you read and consume information differently before the 2000s? Interesting question for y'all out there. But sorry, the quote. I'm getting so sidetracked here. This is gonna be a very messy review because, yeah, mixed feelings. I don't know how to feel about it. The quote, I'm sorry, the quote. I'm getting to the quote. Was that what a novel was? A plane where you could finally juxtapose all the different people, mediating between them and weighing their views. What we have here is 354 pages of Celine's headspace, 10 of which are, I feel like, the very interesting points of the book, or what the book is trying to say. When the book gets meta, and you sort of see the collapse of this book and understand where not only Celine, but where Elif is coming from in terms of quite a book that is very adjacent to her life, quite close, in Batuman's own readings and her travels abroad. We sort of dip into this chicken or egg question of, did Batuman write this in ways to create art out of her own life, in a memoiric way, in the form of a novel, in a novelistic way with a memoiric gaze? And I don't know if it was worth slogging through 300 pages to get to this point in what does fiction achieve? What does writing from your own experience, writing what you know, turning that into art? Did I need 300 pages to get to that idea, which isn't even fully fleshed? By the end of the book, when you hit those like last 10 pages or so, Batuman like blue balls you into this theme beyond whether to live an aesthetic or ethical life, and sort of this metafiction in how does one approach fictional characters and fictionalizing your own history. Not quite sure what to do with that. In those 300 pages where we're sort of moving around through Celine's head, we do come across literature and see how she's highly critical of it, because in ways she absorbs these books as if they are impressions, directions, navigations in how to lead her own life. In ways, it's also about how does fiction save? And what are we saving ourselves from or with fiction? I don't know what it was about being in Celine's head for 300 pages, but I was getting annoyed in that sort of like, Celine is my little sister and she's very young and she's naive and she's sort of moving through the world on her own terms, and it's charming and it's sweet and it's really cringe. What I really appreciate with Batuman style and attempts in this book was how cringe it was, especially with sex and sort of this introductory phase with sex and how to proxy your own body with others and how it fits. Like very new Lego pieces. And yeah, it just like erupted this like, oh, just this cringeness of my own life and being in undergrad and just that newness coming into this new world. Even though she's a sophomore in this book, but yeah, the late bloomers. Yeah, I don't know what it was. It just felt different than the first book. And I mean, it should feel different because Celine is 1 year older. She is a changed person. I think there was like there was this refinement or this editing that was going on in The Idiot, where it felt like a fully formed novel that could work on itself, where this one, I don't think you could go into it having not read the first book, because it ultimately feels like an extension pack of like Celine's diaries or like her own private journal that doesn't exist in the fictional realm, if that makes any sense. That doesn't make any sense, I'm sorry. But there's a point where she's reading Madame Bovary, and there was this point where she was talking about how the book wasn't about Bovary's life within her perspective. It was from the perspective of a man, Flaubert, who wrote the book about her in attempts to think like her or feel like her or feel through her, where the woman's narrative is almost a vessel of sorts, where what if Madame Bovary had written the novel for herself? And it poses a very interesting question, because then what is Celine? And then you talk about, as you go in talking about this book and talking about Celine or thinking about her in this book, she almost becomes this like materialized real person, which she is not. But I think there's a beauty in fiction where when we read and we form these characters in our heads and sort of paint faces and features and they ultimately become ours, a friend of sorts, they feel real. They're almost there. Especially when you're in like her head for 300 pages. You know her. You have this like fully fleshed out person. When in actuality it isn't. She's fictional. She's just black and white text on paper. And what do you do with that by the end of the day? But here, yeah, I don't know how to explain. This is gonna be such a messy review. I'm so sorry. If this is Batuman's like almost memoir, or like, I don't know how you would define that genre, where it is fiction, but it's also memoiric to like strict sense. Who is Celine? Is Celine Batuman? And ultimately we all do that, don't we? We sort of attribute characters of books or see books as soapboxes for authors, when in fact I really do try not to, because they aren't. They're just investigations in how we cooperate or condense contemporary issues, right? But yeah, when you're taking parts of your own life though, like that, and attributing it to a fictional character, there's just these layers of fiction and metafiction that occur where, yeah, you sort of just loop and loop around, not knowing what is the beginning, what is fiction or what is real. So yeah, I feel like The Idiot was very refined and very much its own work. And Either Or is an extension pack for Batuman's own private self or for fan faves. It was interesting also to see that both of these books follow the same formula, where you really don't get a sense of Celine's change until the end, and after she comes back from her like trip abroad. And the same thing happens in Either Or, so it's very interesting to sort of see both books follow the same formula but do two different things. And in the end, if we were to compare both books, I think I prefer The Idiot because of its refinement. But Either Or is just an entirely different animal in itself, but can't exist without the first book. Yeah, and I think just asks different questions, which is good because I feel like that's what, I feel like successful sequels are books that can stand alone because they are asking different questions and trying to answer different things while also walking along the tightrope of trying to answer things that were attempted to be asked in the first book. That was a long-winded way of saying a lot, in which I said very little. Sorry, very unpolished review of this book. I still don't know how I feel about it. I enjoyed this less than I did with The Idiot, but I think this one asks more interesting questions and investigates a lot more interesting themes than done in The Idiot. And that's where my mixed feelings exist. Either Or, Elif Batuman, interesting. Didn't enjoy it as much as The Idiot, but I thought the ideas in here were interesting. Also, incredibly funny. It was great to be back in Celine's headspace and just hearing her funny commentary on everything. Books, life, literature, everything. Fantastic. It was a joy. I don't know. I feel like if The Idiot did something for you, like tremendously, this one will as well. It just feels like the second season that didn't need to be made, but it was interesting to see. Just feels like a lot of fluff. Further characterization of Celine and her development. It does beg the question. I have to credit this other booktuber because she has a fabulous review, a lot more polished, very succinct. I commend Claire Reads Books. Ugh, I will link it downstairs, but her review of Either Or is incredible. I watched it, I think like 4 times, just because the amount of information packed in, I think, what is it, 15 minutes? Incredible, absolutely incredible review. It begs this question or this idea of the books that we should be reading and at what point in our lives that we are reading these books. They do a tremendous job of feeding us information and what to do with that information. If I'm to give any advice, which I shouldn't, no one should ever take my advice, I feel. I think I always told my brothers that, like, because I'm the eldest, I always tell them, never look up to me, look down at me, learn from my mistakes. Because all my mistakes have been a waste of time for me, and they shouldn't be a waste of time for her. But in your teens and early 20s, read as much as possible. Read so many books, good books, bad books, any books, because I think it informs a lot of how you see the world, especially now, because information is at our fingertips. That does something to you. There's a lot of privilege in that, and we need to change that. Young people out there, read as much as you can, because if you do, I think not only will you develop a lot of more empathy, a lot of more range of emotions, vocabulary, perspective, histories, narratives, does a lot for you, does a lot for your soul at 20. Like, read those wild books, read Henry Miller, read Kurt Vonnegut, read, you know, all those books that Salinger, all of those people, Raymond Carver, all of those people, the women too. I don't know why I just named a bunch of male authors, but Virginia Woolf, Renata Adler, Iris Murdoch, even though I haven't read any, I will. All of them, just read everything. Read as much as you can. It will do wonders for you. With that, And through Celine's exploration through so many books, Batuman, I think, was it the New Yorker, where she was saying that trying to read books that will change her life. I don't know how you would even go about that though. How do you even like decide on a book and know how it's changing your life? So I don't know how you even attempt to do that. But a book that she did have was Marie Kondo's, what is it, The Magical Tidying, How to Tidy Your Life. What brings you joy? Does it bring joy? That book actually changed her life, which is fascinating, and allowed her to purge a lot of books that didn't seem to change her life, and she kept all the books that have and informed her a lot about her own readings and her own wealth of information. At this point, I'm just rambling. This idea of reading as much as you can, which she promotes, I think is incredibly important for everyone, because reading is sexy. I'm sorry, I was supposed to enter this video by giving my tagline. My tagline is, read lots. Reading is sexy. If you aren't reading, you aren't sexy. I'm gonna say that. Like, have a book in hand everywhere you go, waiting for the bus, waiting for the train, anything, waiting for a friend. Read. Be reading. Do not be on your phone. To be caught dead, hit by a bus, you know, deceased because you had a phone in your hands, worst way to go. That's pathetic. If there was an obituary or, you know, something that were saying, boy dies because he was looking at his phone, God, boy dies because he was reading, now that's something else. Then you'd like to know, what was he reading? What can we learn from that book? Because I think even good or bad, and I think I've said this before, but Faulkner said that it was important to read bad books just as much as it's important to read good books, because you can understand what's working and what doesn't work. And with that, I think you build higher understanding of what fiction is supposed to do, what it can do, and if it has achieved anything for you. Read. Reading is sexy. Okay, that was 25 minutes on either or. I also finished recently, yesterday actually, Milk Teeth by Jessica Andrews. Will say, I wrote a scathing review on Goodreads, and I didn't mean to be so harsh. I really didn't, but I was. But let me pull it up. Could go two ways for people. That one viscose girl Tumblr poet who still sees the world in 2008 Instagram sepia, or an emerging voice trying hard and true in making reading a rich experience for future Urban Outfitters readers. That is this book. Further on, I say, the ending could have come sooner, but you were there for the vibes because you have your tote bag, Doc's cold brew latte, Cos Porta Pro headphones, and that one cigarettes after sex song on loop that everyone knows, but you feel more than anyone. And you have style, but in actuality look like your entire TikTok FYP. Did I really say FYP out loud like that and not For You page? Sounds weird. It's about this woman. Fantastic summary. Actually enjoyed it much more than my review says. I actually did enjoy this, but about a woman, and trigger warning, about developing an eating disorder. It's about who can't seem to admit what she wants all the time. I think I've talked about this before, but this idea, Joanna Walsh's Girl Online, about speech act and what happens before speech act. And our narrator can't seem to perform her wants through this speech act. She has a hard time voicing her needs. It's this idea about how the body is a trap, and all those entrapments and the way it tangles the desire to be wanted, the desire to be loved, the desire to just be out there living. And she has a hard time doing that, making ends meet in London while seeing this boy in Spain. It's done with this such rich, very, very rich, viscous, overly sweet prose that you probably could have picked up early Tumblr poems, lavish Instagram posts that say a whole lot of nothing, but it all sounds very pretty. And then all you can do is like leave heart emojis. It does that. But let me give you a taste of what the prose is like. You press your lips to my shoulder and I lean toward you, falling into danger, twisting the rind of you around my tongue. You slip your fingers past the hem of my shirt, press your hands into my hips. The floor is cold and I give into the night, brushing off the questions caught in my skin like teeth, trying so hard to be present. My hips spill around you, hair streaming across the tiles. The air is creamed with coconut milk and I pull you closer, tasting the gold of you, choking on endless yellow. It's lush. It's beautiful. Not gonna lie, I love it. If I was 18, I would have gobbled this up, but it screams summer so loud that I had to love it. I enjoyed it a lot. Just being in that like specific prose again just brought a lot of that like teen angst. And I had just read this article on Dirt, Substack. If anyone reads Dirt, love it. But I recently found it by way of a TikTok and talking about suburban sensationalism and just this like the provocative details of what it means to come from the suburbs. And I don't know why I'm mourning or so nostalgic about the suburbs, because when I think about it, I really do hate it. But at the same time, there were just like details about it that just mean so much to me and made up a majority of my comeuppance, my upbringing. So I don't know, I pay respects to it to a certain extent. This doesn't have anything to do with the suburbs really, but it has that same ennui about it that I just love so much. It's gorgeous, but like there are moments where it unironically uses like stars and constellations as way of propelling plot or character development or all of that. I don't know, to a certain extent there are moments where it does get cringe, but it doesn't get to that point where it's laughable. There's a lot of seriousness in this, and yeah, there's just beautiful moments throughout, beginning to end, and just really enjoyed it. But it's very much one of those books that you find at Urban Outfitters. Not to bash on like Urban Outfitters book, because I think it has like a very specific curation for a very specific group of people. And that's not bad, you know, as long as people are reading. I would not bash that. As long as you're reading, it's fine. But yes, this is very much an Urban Outfitters book, but it is so lush and wrought with summer that I enjoyed it. I try to read everything, okay? If you're looking for something, I think I wrote it here. Who's this for? This is for people with teen angst in first love relationship, surfing the honeymoon phase of whatever amorous pursuits you have. If you're like low-key stalking someone. There's just a lot of lust in this, like lustful, passionate moments. The passage I just read you, it's just beautiful. I am curious about Saltwater, her debut novel. Yeah, definitely someone I'll return to if I'm in the mood for it. Like, I'm sort of glad this was my last August read. Sort of capped off summer perfectly. Definitely take this with you to the beach, to some summer home, one of those day houses that you take on the weekends. That. Exquisite, delectable, luscious. Ate this up, and I would have eaten up sooner if I was younger. Milk Teeth, Jessica Andrews. Read it. Okay, I think that's enough of that. And right now, I'm reading Alfian Saat's collected plays 2, the Asian Boys trilogy. I've only gone through the forewords and how it's about Singapore and queer culture, and during that time where it's all still feels illegal. It mentions this quote twice in one of the plays. I'm sorry, this is a collection of plays. Did I already mention that? I just feel like it would be kind of sexy to read some plays for fall. But here's the quote. Well, if there's one thing I've learned from the army, apart from the fact not all men are created equal, is that you can do anything, as long as you don't get caught. It's illegal only if someone catches you doing it. And in some ways, I feel like that's how queer culture in Japan and Korea is as well. It's illegal only if someone catches you doing it. Queer culture in Japan and Korea, I feel, is like still very 80s, in that people are very good at hiding it, like hiding their queerism. And like in some respects, it's, or not respectful at, I don't know, it's weird. There's like a little queer vocabulary for y'all, but like iltik means straight passing, essentially, but straight passing is a compliment. So if someone says that you're iltik, like you're straight passing, it's a compliment, which is so odd to me. Like, what the fuck does that mean? How's that a compliment? No hate to straight people, but like, I don't know, odd that Japan and Korea are sort of stuck in the 80s when it comes to being queer and hiding your identity and still being closeted, and not many people, or I mean, being in the community, I know a lot of people who are still closeted and don't ever plan on coming out of the closet, and very interesting. Speaking for Korea, having been here. But yeah, anyway, plays about the gays. What more could I ask for? We have the Asian Boys Trilogy, Dream Play Landmarks, Happy Endings. And I have not read much Singaporean literature. I don't know why Singapore, I don't know, maybe I want to go. Is that why? I don't know, visit my friends there. I don't know, I want to go. I want to go to Singapore. One day, sometime soon in the future. But yes, thought I'd dip into Singaporean literature, step out of my Euro-Western centric literature. Yeah, thought I'd dip into this. Also, I feel like when people talk about Asian literature, I feel like most people will immediately jump to Japanese literature. I do that. I caught red-handed, I do that. And same with cinema as well. When in fact, you know, there's a lot of literature out there, Asian literature, that is very diverse, and I just want to diversify that. So that is why I'm reading this. Also, reading a play. I haven't read a play since like Bad Tennessee Williams. You know what I mean? It's just like, I want to say sometime in my undergrad, yeah, was the last time I read a play. So yeah, just be nice to jump back into something like this. Yes. If you've read either or, lend me your thoughts and your favorite Celine moments. I'm curious to know. There are a lot of great moments in either or. Let me know if you've read Saltwater by Jessica Andrews, because I'm curious, would like to know. And please let me know what you're reading, because reading is sexy, therefore you are sexy. I want to know how you've been sexy, so please let me know what you're reading. Okay, great, fantastic. That's it for today. I've spewed enough garbage from this mouth hole. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch. Hello, running extremely late, so quick breakdown. Little mint shirt, basic white tee from COS, 51%. Yeah, going into the city, meeting some friends, gonna go dancing, maybe? I did not expect to stay the night, but I think I am. So I brought my duffel. I don't know why it's packed to the brim, but we gotta go. We gotta go. Bus driver just left to use the restroom. I'm the only one on this bus. But yeah, he just stopped in the middle of the road to use the restroom. I love this. I'm in no rush.